lives at 2 health, clutches the game. Aurora, Guild Deja there for the majority of it. So, I want to see more. I want to see more.
You want to see more one tricks? Well, we'll go get right on board with one of those one tricks. Percy Jackson, the winner of game 2, chasing them through the early game. Already got that first bow off of the carousel, got it on the Malphite. There was a second option on the center there. And you know what this is looking towards too. This is just going to be the same thing over and over again. The Astral Swift shot board into the level 7-8 transition, put the Shyvana Guild Desire in, and see how well it goes. He did it with 2 HP last game, so I'm pretty sure he could do it from basically any position.
Well, that's just something that we're going to have to wait and see now, isn't it, Ducky? Nothing is promised in a game of TFT. What if no Astro show up in shop there? What if no Zayas show up in shop for Percy? Then an alternate line will have to have been found. But that's merely a theoretical now, isn't
Just
it?
got 2 Astrals in that shop. I think they're fine.
I think they're probably good.
Yeah, they're probably fine. We're on board with Colourful here, who already has that Stabby Tabby that you've been talking about, the Rengar. And Colourful has gone back to Dark Flight Rengar games, contesting Huey, Dewey, Louie on that comp that Huey has been so favouring this weekend. Huey hasn't been able to find a way to angle that comp into his playstyle yet and suffered for it with 2-7s back-to-back. Colourful, though, is off to probably the best start possible he could want to go back-to-back-to-back with the Dark Flats.
Well, it has been working out for them relatively well. It hasn't been winning lobbies, but putting up decent showings every single time that they've gone for it. So, yeah, I think that Dark Flight seems to be kind of that safe, I'm going to try to go for a third style of gameplay, but it hasn't been winning, and at the end of the day, you are going to need some points to be able to go to Worlds.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. There's still 4 games left here. Colourful getting the 3 Astrals in early, can farm in a little bit of econ throughout that stage 2. While they build up the rest of their comp. Gold Augurs are started off here. Base Camp, very popular option. Ancient Archives and Luna's Echoes does opt for the Ancient Archives and can get that Darkflight Essence up quick stat.
Yeah, unfortunately says based on what there doesn't really get the memo, but is going to be going for that Ancient Archives instead. It's going to be really interesting to see when they exactly try to pop it open, trying to find that Darkflight Essence potentially, or just even a Darkflight emblem there would be the way to go about things. Fred, on the other hand, now we haven't seen any of this to start off today, Ducky, but reroll Karma is certainly an option coming into this game.
It's not just reroll Karma, it's getting the Dragonmancer emblem out. Like, we've seen a little bit of Dragonmancer this weekend, and the Dragonmancer emblem highlights one thing to me, Frosty, and that is going to be some Dragonmancer Alshin gameplay if Fred can navigate into the late game. The items are, a little bit of a mismatch. Can slam the Hodge if 100% needed, but probably won't be too sad about where this board kind of goes. Getting the emblem online early, though, getting that direction early, is very, very good.
Yeah, look over on the other side of the board as well. Tamura has been that Soifan player for the majority of these games, but is probably looking to go for something a little bit different there. Already got the Jewel Loader slammed down, so we're probably going to see, a different style of gameplay. Maybe a little bit of AP, trying to get some Lagoon going on.
I mean, that's the kind of way these boards kind of work, right? You get the Lagoon, you farm up from a couple of Seashell stacks. Nice little shop to emphasize that Lagoon from here. But is potentially looking at it. I mean, can just play the 3 Lagoon with 2 Dragonmancer. We'll have to wait and see. We'll see where that goes. We go over to Obo here. He's got the Swift Shot emblem nice and early, along with 3 Swift Shots in. So maybe there is a little bit of contention on Percy Jackson's hand to navigate this game.
But on the other hand, Swiftshot Yone has been a composition that we've known to be highly successful if you're able to hit that Swiftshot emblem early, Ducky, so definitely an option to try to go for the contesting of the Zaya, but when you hit so many Yones early, you end up trying to pivot towards that Yone, and it's definitely a strong option.
I think we've had 1 Swiftshot Yone reroll so far this weekend, if I'm not mistaken, happened on day 1. I think it placed relatively okay. Not as good as, say, the Scoped Weapons Yone 2, the Scoped Weapons 2 Yone that we have seen. I think Huey's last game was a little bit of an outlier. But you can't necessarily complain with this stuff for Obo. Just having the 3 Swift Shot in with that extra attack speed this early on is very nice.
Yeah, the way that they changed the vertical, really enabling the composition to be a little bit stronger, trying to be pigeonholed into trying to go for 4, ended up working kind of in a detriment there because you end up sacrificing a lot of front line, but turns out 3 is probably that nice niche that they'll end up trying to hit this game. It's so easy to slot in a Twitch in this composition there, and then you've got options like Ferris, Zaya, all that fun business as well. So Obo's in a really good spot to try to continue on this game and really try to solidify their power going into stage 3.
I do like the idea to stop down to 2 Swift Shot here, though. Mirage
Mhm.
is Pirates this game, so can farm a little bit of econ with this Nunu on the board as well. Pirates has been very popular, I think, this weekend because of the econ propositions that it offers. And when you're playing in a lobby that has a lot of Astral players and Lagoon players who are getting that early econ as well, being able to keep up with, I guess, a more aggressive version in the Pirates board can really be beneficial. To, Obo getting going to get a little bit of a chest here, maybe with a little bit of gold in it at the end of this combat, and it slowly ramps up across the course of the game as well. And if you're playing the Swift Shot Yone reroll, right, you're going to get that active for the entire game. So you're going to be getting this bonus well beyond where people who would be running Astral or Lagoon openers would.
Yeah, very nice points that you mentioned there. I mean, you've also got to remember that, like, he's also incredibly strong. He's got a swift shot Yone, and it's going to be a real struggle for a lot of boards to end up dealing with that early. So you're not really giving up a lot of combat power. And I mean, I Spy with my little eye, something beginning with a Y here with a sword on the carousel. I'll have to see whether Obo manages to pick it up. What's on the other side there? Looks like they're
Well,
making a
the
beeline for it.
yeah, the carousel positioning favored him there. It's just rotating into him. He does pick it up, so there you go. That's very good there. Kade, want to point out there, has pushed through to level 5. That enabled them the win earlier last combat. We're seeing a few level ups here as well at 2-3 with Obo and Aurora as well pushing. Black on board with Colourful, and did wait to pop that tome to get the Dark Flight on, and that is the best they could have asked for.
Well, this is certainly going to be opening here. Look at that. Ending up taking a Nidalee 2 out, selling it, trying to just make economy at this point. I mean, it's not as if Colourful's not even strong as well with this board. Even though they've got a board full of 1-stars here, that's 4 3 Darkflight essences that's going to be coming onto each of these Darkflight units.
And it's got some nice items on bench here to just hold around with and play around this Rengar. Slammed the IE nice and early. Had the GS playing around with yesterday, earlier today, last game. Didn't obviously go too well in terms of getting eliminated. I think it was in 5th last game. But it's still Zeke's components there. The bow in any way is good. So Colourful is getting this board online a lot earlier than he has been for the rest of today. And kind of went away with that Astral opener, threw it away, and I think it's right to do that when you have that strong of a Darkflight board to open up the game with.
Wow, look at this, Ducky. Gear. I mean, you were mentioning earlier, gear upgrades is one of those traits that we haven't ended up seeing all too much, one of those augments that has been quite unpopular, but Kade is win streaking with 5 guild, has already found a Zippy at this stage of the game, and is looking incredibly strong.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different ways you can kind of take this gear upgrades board, right? Previously, there's been AP Jace builds, there's still a lot of guild boards to play around here. If he gets an emblem, that's where things get really spicy, because you can play around with Deiji, you can play around with Zaya, there's a lot of different outs there. Wouldn't go for maybe a Twitch route. We've seen Twitch reroll once this weekend and it hasn't gone too well, but there's still plenty of options here to play, and having just this much guild online so early is a very big power spike for Kade, and I guess a bit understanding of why they have managed to win streak all the way through stage 2.
Oh yeah, definitely. Let's not forget the augments as well, because augments will start to be weighted towards getting some of those guild based augments. So you're more likely to try to hit something like that guild emblem, which will enable things like that Guild Ao Shin, these incredibly powerful compositions, things like potentially Guild Asia as well. There's a lot of potential ways that you could end up playing this game.
Moving into the stage 2 neutral round here against the Krugs, taking a little bit of stock of what the leaderboard looks like so far down the bottom there. It's been a pretty staple bottom 3 for basically the entire day so far. The Blue Streak players and Percy Jackson, Huey, Joey, Louie, and Tamura, they've favored that Blue Streak playstyle compared to someone like Aurora, Obo, and Colourful, who are seeing an edge a little bit higher up. Kade, I wouldn't say has favored it too much, has found themselves in bad positions to start off the day, but would be very happy with this 100 HP win streak. Gets a couple of components there off of the Krugs. Where you think things are sitting for now, Frosty, as we enter into stage 3 in the augments of 3-2?
I'm interested to see exactly where Tamura takes this game because we saw them earlier on with the Jeweled Gauntlet there, and typically AP doesn't do all too well in the early game. You can struggle to find some decent holders for some of those items unless you're hitting, things like a Kai'Sa 2. I mean, there is a Kai'Sa 1 on their bench right now with a blue buff, so they're going to start getting those Lagoon stacks. So looks to be like Tamura is just kind of waiting till level 7, is going to take the brunt of the damage for the time being and then try to really power spike with it hitting a Soam at level 6 or taking a big roll down at level 7.
Has the Jeweled Lotus as well to play around with. That's something I think to be of note here. Is waiting for the final component for the IE as well. You're pointing your finger at me.
I'm pointing my finger at you, or I'm
you're like
I'm
shaking
noticing.
it around. You're being like, "There's something happening here. There's something spicy."
Oh no, I was just agreeing with everything that you were saying. Then I mean, people in chat are probably question mark pinging us right about now, but yeah, I'm definitely agreeing with everything that you say.
It's not doing too well right now. Obviously, it takes a big damage to face here. 58 HP, so maybe a bit lower against Percy Jackson, who, by the way, we had to mention has the metabolic, so has already healed like 10 HP, 12 HP off the back of that. Moving to the second augment choices here. Very general. The Ludens is an okay choice for some of these boards, especially when you're playing with the Lagoon. You can just choose to opt for the Mage Soam board, but Celestial Blessing is kind of been a staple this weekend in terms of just having that general healing.
Yeah, all three of them definitely have merit to being picked up there. Second win, just an overall really powerful, as well as Celestial Blessing there. And that's a Soam being hit at level 6. This is exactly what Tamura needed to be able to have this massive spike, because the Lagoon stacks, Ducky, are going to start coming through rapidly now.
And the thing is as well, we've got a Champion Duplicator on bench here as well, so is one away from a potential early Soam 2 spike if they so wish. Because if they hit like one at 5% here, there is just the potential to slam it and just completely decimate the rest of the lobby. Win streak the way through, but not just win streak in the way of just like winning the combats willy-nilly, winning them hard and really tanking the HP of your opponent. So potential for it to really turn up the heat here from Tamura in this third stage, but has to get through this very strong Karma to start with.
I mean, it's not even bad if you end up taking this loss here, because again, look at just how many Lagoon stacks. I mean, Tamura managed to high roll there, finding a glove off of the Lagoon, immediately slamming it down. But I mean, you've gone from essentially having no Lagoon stacks to you are going to start farming up 20 plus casts every single combat, and the board is only going to get better from here. You found your critical piece, but chat needs to find their critical exclamation mark chest in chat right now to be able to pick up that chest. Don't forget, you cannot buy this chest, so this is one of the only opportunities that you're going to have to pick it up, so exclamation mark chest to be able to pick that up. On the other hand, we see that Obu has picked up 7 Yones and has an Infinity Edge slammed already. There is a Swift Shot emblem, a Warrior emblem on their board as well. This is looking to be a fairly stock standard game for Obu.
I reckon Huey's looking at Obo's board going, where were all these Yones for me last game? Like, this is like super early online Yone here, and he's still stacking up that Mirage Pirates value off of just getting the 2 Mirage in. I wonder how much that's played into the econ. Did send it there at 3-2 and 3-3, so it is out of gold for now. But with the relative board strength that they've been able to build and how close they are to Yone 3, they're only like a couple of lucky rolls away from being able to just completely steamroll the rest of the lobby, basically all the way through stage 5.
Yeah, you look at their gold count, they are down into the single digits at this point. However, they do have the pirate gold to be able to recoup some of that, so it's not all doom and gloom for the time being, They are going to have time to be able to, have a chance to roll down for it again. And for where they're at in the lobby right now, they're looking pretty.
Fred has taken the spatula. We saw it passed in last game. Fred playing that Dragonmancer board, got the Dragonmancer crest early on, so definitely playing around these spatulas, and we have seen it just stack up and stack up. We probably won't talk about Esh's game yesterday, where he had a billion spatulas, a billion Dragonmancers flying around, and just wasn't able to make anything of it, got very dizzy, but we have seen it to great success from some other players like Aurora and Tamura. So it remains to be seen what Fred's board's going to look like, but it does continue pushing towards that angle of Dragonmancer, Aurelion Soul. On board with Kade here. Got the gear upgrades, the Portable Forge. The Eternal Winds is a really nice item here.
Definitely. Immediately being able to get that attack speed slow on everything that's going to end up targeting it. Look at Percy Jackson, though. This is exciting, Ducky. We haven't seen Percy Jackson pivoting away from that Zaya comp, but it seems like now is the time. Base camp coming into action, and it's going to be quite effective. That's already a level 7 Percy Jackson, but to be fair, on the other side of the field, that is a Zippy just bonking its way into the carries here of Percy Jackson.
Look, the rapid fire cannon, you know, the Eternal Winter doesn't really care about that. It's still going to freeze up the Olaf no matter how many times you attack it. The attacks will go through, they won't be dodged, but, you know, will freeze up the Olaf, and that's what ultimately goes through in his Percy Jackson's downfall. I don't mind this, because Percy Jackson has the time with this Metabolic Accelerator, has given themselves maybe a couple more lives across just the general healing from 2-1 to be able to maybe make this Olaf board go online. And this, you know, we're still waiting for the fully stacked base camp to come through, so we'll have to wait and see where that goes as we move over to Fred with that 4 Dragonmancer sitting on the emblem on bench as well as a spatula. Is the Karma the end game here? Probably not, but it is a very strong mid-game unit to carry this board through to around stage 5-6.
But notice, Ducky, Fred's only level 5. Fred has chosen to stay level 5 and is slow rolling for these Karma, so it looks to be like Karma may in fact be the end game. You know, Fred is going to just try to end up trying to go for these Karmas now. They really need to take a big spike soon because they're bleeding out a lot of health. Even with, you know, some of these better losses, you really need to hit the power spike of the Karma 3 so that you can end up actually putting your Dragonmancer emblems on units, because otherwise you're just going to end up stuck.
And I guess having those Dragonmancer emblems on the bench, not giving you much value.
That's it.
Moving forward into the neutral round here, Colourful maintained the win streak. Aurora lost their win streak heading into that neutral round, so that's a big loss for them, losing the Red Ring of Fire, as I like to call it. The set getting picked up there, that's the set 3. We have seen a couple of players opt into this just 3-star everything on your Dragonmancer board, maximize the Dragonmancer star level buff that it gives you, when you can, you know, buff up the health and the ability power based off the star level of the units on board. So yeah, and it has, I guess, a bit of direction in terms of that way. I just am thinking more generally about how this board has performed over the weekend. It has gone better when players have pressed the F key more than the D key.
I would tend to agree with you. You know, I think this is a little bit of a risky one, and you can see kind of the awkward nature of it here, where it's stage 4 and you haven't hit your main carry, right? You've been continuously rolling down, you just haven't hit, and this is where the danger zone comes into play, where you're starting to not slow roll, but you're not finding anything, so you're trying to press D more, but the more that you press D, the more that you lose tempo later on into the game, and it's just so detrimental to you that this is the risk. You know, this is the risk that you take while playing these level 1 reroll compositions, is that sometimes you don't. This isn't Astrals of old.
And is probably waiting for this 4-2 augment choice to really decide where this board goes, because they will maybe have to just send it here to really stabilize and make sure that they can get through this mid game, because there's, you know, this Karma doesn't quite get the cast off, not enough healing through that Hand of Justice to win that combat. Up against Huey Jui Louis, who has the trade sector as well and is kind of contesting him on at least one of these. The cast is not ultimately too important for this board. Not the greatest augments here to maybe make this way. The second win's okay for some healing, but you down for a reroll? Yep.
Yeah, I'm down for a reroll, and I'm down for a Jewel Lotus immediately here. Jewel Lotus, pretty darn good. You're not really going to be taking Dragon Imperialist at this stage of the game, though. You know, if it was in a better position, if it, you know, did end up taking a line where, you know, for example, you've already put levels into trying to hit, say, the Dragonmancer Aoshin, Dragon Imperialist would be insane. But, I mean, there's still something to consider. Best Friends is still going to be half decent, you know, and Best Friends is going to come into play.
I don't mind it, because it's just a little bit of defensive utility on a board that doesn't have it right now, and is about to hit that level 6, so we'll be able to get... Everyone will have a Best Friend eventually. Maybe not for this combat. Please move away the Lee Sin. So the front line's not getting the Best Friends this combat, was very much focusing on that roll down and sent it down to 20. But the positioning could have been a bit better to maximize that Best Friends. Will it ultimately matter in the combat? Probably still losing to this on board of Tamura's, but maybe could have gotten an extra unit kill, who knows.
Oh, I'm so worried now. Look at this. This is 19 gold. you're still level 5. And it just, it doesn't get better for the next few rounds. You have to hit this combo. You've invested so much into it at this point that you are going to be stuck rolling down for, well,
He
your
has to send
main
it here.
carry.
That's
He
it.
has to send it.
He has to.
And what if he
Otherwise
doesn't
he's out of
hit?
tempo. Well, we saw what happened to Escher yesterday when he sent it and didn't hit anything. So, hoping there's no repeat for Fred. He does hit it. Has to sell something to get the level up here. And he also needs to reposition his board to maximize his best friend's value. He is holding on to these volley bears. Will he move? Yep, alright. Moves the Lee Sin, so can start building defensive utility onto this front line. Can also slam the Dragonmancer Emblem to get 6 Dragonmancers on. Is this board stable enough from here? Well, Obo's Swift Shot 3 Yone is definitely going to test it out.
Let's raid boss Karma at this point. 3-star Karma does end up pumping out a ton of damage, but this is a Braum. And look at the healing coming through from these Karma swings, but the Yone is no slouch either. And the damage, 1,000 damage coming through on each of these shots. No crits though. It's a 1v1, a Kaiser versus a stacked Rat. And it looks like the XDD will come through. Another loss for Fred.
That was a couple of Warrior Procs coming through there as well. It made a little bit of a difference maker there, just getting a little bit of bonus damage there. And it's very dicey from here for Fred. It's very hard to navigate from this position because of just sending it that early and not hitting, and now them delaying that entire game plan. It does make you think whether the leveling up strategy and getting in that Aoshin could have played a part in helping that. This is all hypotheticals that we can only talk about here. Fred has just got to make do with their board for the rest of the game. Looking across the rest of the lobby, on board with Huey, Dewey, Louis now, who's sitting below Fred at 26 HP, still waiting for that Soam 2. There is a couple of Soam players in this lobby as well. Got a couple of ZZ Rods, which is very nice for this Lagoon frontline with that often struggles, and the Mage Zyra.
Yeah, looking at, what Huey Dewey Lou's got going on, I'd say that they're in a fairly decent spot. The ZZ Rots are a massive part of this Lagoon composition, just being able to buy yourself more time, get more of those stacks off. But yes, not hitting a Soam 2 at this stage of the game is going to be kind of important, especially as Obu has just hit Yone 3 as well. One saving grace is Neela 2, being able to dash around and dealing out a ton of damage in the back line, giving your Soam enough time to cast, and also doing a really good job of cleaning up. And look at this, the Yone is just absolutely cleaving through everything that Huey Dewey has got.
Yeah, this is a very strong board from Obo. That is mildly terrifying. If I'm not going to be...
It's a little terrifying.
I reckon Huey's looking at this, and I said it a little bit earlier, and Huey's going, why couldn't that be me last game, man? This is what I was dissing out on. Does find the Soam there. He's rolling down here to try and hit this Soam 2. It's a very big power spike for him. Won't hit it on this turn, but could block shop potentially from here on out. But at least one extra life. We'll get the Treasure Dragon after this to play around with as we go on board with Aurora at 39 HP. And probably one of the more dire spots that we've seen them so far today, but taking a leaf out of Percy Jackson's book and running this Zyre, and has got the Zyre to it.
Yeah, but this is such a different way of playing the composition now. This is something that we don't end up seeing a lot, is 5 Shimmer Scale. When your Shimmer Scale items are really good, we see the Draven's Axe and the Bag of Gold. This is something that you can end up running as an alternative to the guild composition. And, if you end up high rolling a bit with, such big gold swings, then you end up getting massive pays off. And look at the damage that's pumping out, Even the Karma 3 is struggling to be able to deal with Isaiah 2.
I mean, that's just the front line as well for the mana generation for that Karma, and it just couldn't get the targeting down.
Ooh,
is offered.
Big.
This is big because the Magnetic Remover and the Ginsu's Reckoning there could be pulled off the Zyre, but he rolls past it.
Wow.
What do you think he's looking for here, Frosty?
I'd say that they're probably looking for more defensive itemization at this point. Is going to end up taking the Banshee Silence. They're getting that Team Wild Spell Shield there. And I gotta agree, that is a pretty safe option, especially if you're just looking to pump out a ton of damage with his Zyre.
I have to wait and see as we swap over to Tamura's board. He's got the 9 Lagoon online. That Static Shiv Radiant item, very strong as well. Actually recently nerfed, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, it has been recently nerfed. And this is the board that Huey wishes they had. He's got the Soam 2, He's got the Jeweled Lotus with the IE. Basically perfect items for Tamura here, and this is just emblematic of how well they have been playing today to navigate to this position.
And 9 Lagoon as well at this stage of the game means that you're going to get a ton of attack speed and, you know, a ton of extra AP as well. You probably don't even need a blue buff on your Soam to be able to get repeatable casts off. It's just an extra bonus at this point.
At the 201 seashell stacks as well, Tamura was the player who we saw hit Fon. They did get the Tactician's Crown with the 600 stacks off of the Soam board yesterday, so it remains to be seen whether they could hit that again. At 5-1, being this far behind, probably not a possibility. But up into this combat here against Colourful, this is the battle of the streaks, really. And the Rengar Edge of Night, once again, showing the power of that item to just get the, just block the damage. It's simply that. Like, the targeting's removed, and the Rengar can just stab away.
You mentioned it, the targeting is removed, and that is really important against something like the Soam composition. Just being able to divert that extra damage that you could usually use to end up bursting down the Rengar means that it's just not going to work the way that you want it, and Soam really works in bursts, right? Where you want to blow up those Tide Blossoms to be able to get massive AoE damage. Well, if they're not going to be able to, you know, deal that full chunk of damage, it's just going to be stuck casting for a long time.
Back on board with Huey, Jui, Louis. Like we said, you versus the Lagoon board. Told you not to worry about. Got the Radiant Giant Slayer here to play around with. Up against Fred, this is the battle for 8th, in the saddest way of putting it, and this Radiant IE on... This is just so much crit damage coming out from this Kai'Sa, not the Kai'Sa, the Karma, but it needs to actually take down this Soam first, because before the Tide Blossoms come through, and it does eventually do so. Was worried about the Karma targeting a little bit there. It was getting chunked out by those Tide Blossoms, but it's enough with Fred 1 HP in a Dream, and Huey out with an 8. This has not been Huey's day.
Definitely not. We're going to move over to Kade, whoever... You said that we weren't going to be seeing any rat carry, but I'm seeing a Xayah 1 here, and I'm seeing a Twitch with the itemization instead. The gear upgrades actually playing a pretty pivotal role here, enabling a Twitch 2 to be a primary carry for the time being.
I mean, especially when you've got the 7 guild out, like, it's... all you need is an emblem from here, right? If you get an emblem, maybe that's when we see the transition over to a Xayah board, and I mean, 5-3, like, the next carousel coming up could ultimately dictate that. Remains to be seen. But yeah, the gear upgrades with this Twitch just still doesn't, like, do a lot of damage. Let's face it, it's not doing a hell of a lot in this combat. It's just hitting and, like, throwing out the casts, but this Karma will absolutely cleave through it as the Ghost. But Fred is out in 10th, out with negative 10 HP in 7th.
I mean, I don't think Fred took that bad of a loss that he's going to be ending up in 10th there, Ducky, but I'll give you credit where credit is due. You know, it was a fairly strong board. It seems like the tempo of the lobby just outpaced him, especially, you know, not being able to hit that Karma 3 early enough. As we're going to go into things here, Kade measures to pick up that Swift Shot emblem, so that's only going to greater enable the potential rat carry that we're going to be seeing here. Aurora, on the other hand, is still rocking that 5 Shimmer Scale board, has a ton of gold, but not much to really do with it.
He's probably, maybe even hoping to just win this round by the skin of their teeth and push through for a level 9 next turn, maybe, but I really have to call into question here, and we talked about it when the Treasure Dragon came through. I wonder how much this Banshee Silence has done, because 3 straight combat losses since they took it. I wonder if the Ginsu's Reckoning would have been a little bit stronger.
One has to wonder, but this is probably going to be the perfect matchup to test it out here. That is an incredibly scary Rengar, and it's managed to find its way onto the back line immediately. 2 Rengars immediately taking the knee to the Xayah. The Xayah is doing a lot of damage. Immediate bursts coming out, but the Rengars find their way onto the main carry. Aurora's got pretty much nothing left here. Only a very, very tanky Idis, and it's looking quite dire for them indeed. As the Stabby Tabby does its work, is going to eventually make its way through the Idis's massive health pool, and that is Aurora going out in 6th.
It is like the question there is do you keep the gold for Draven's Axe or do you level up? Held the gold for Draven's Axe, was maybe 1 turn away from like just cashing it out and letting it go. Unfortunate there for Aurora going out in 6th, quite uncommon for their placements this weekend. Had a strong first 2 games to start off day 3. pushing through 2 worlds. A 6, still 3 points at the end of the day. At least it's not a 7th or an 8th. But we'll be hoping to bounce back after the break. On board with Colorful, the one thing I wanted to point out before that combat, that is like a damage swain. That's the more Morellonomicon. That's the decap. Does get the Darkflight Essence as well, but I wouldn't mind actually like a focused defensive item like the Bramble Vest that we have seen itemized this weekend.
Oh no, Kade's Rat. Kade's Rat is going to be going in the way of these Rengars here. Looks like a fairly good Bard stun, but the Rat just does not deal enough damage. XDB going out immediately. Double Swift Shot Emblem not really proving to be all too useful when there is no Hex Gap between you and a very, very angry cat. It would look like Kade is probably going to be taking their last loss of this game, going out in 5th. Unfortunate showing.
And this is back-to-back-to-back Darkflight games for Colorful. We mentioned at the top when they were like playing around with that Ancient Archives tome at the start, waited to roll it as well before they got the Darkflight in, and then maximize their chances to get that Darkflight emblem. Playing around with it now, got the 7 Darkflight, very nice. Into our top 4 for the rest of this lobby. Colorful way out ahead with 79 HP. Tamura, again, consistently performing today, 31 HP. Percy Jackson and Oboe holding on for dear life, 18 and 2 HP respectively. BT here, yeah, it's an okay item.
It's pretty good, I'd like to say that I just wanted to give Colorful a shout out here, being really good at recognizing exactly the situations that they're in. Hasn't chosen to try to roll down for a Rengar 3 at this point of the game. Recognizes that just going for a level 9 is probably going to be adding more to a board. And you know what they're probably going to end up adding, Ducky? Probably going to end up adding a Rel 1 at this point, just because it's another Darkflight.
Yeah, and feeding that Darkflight essence, right? That's the ultimate goal from here. On board with Oboe here. On 2 HP, the Swiss Shot Yone reroll, maybe losing a little bit of power. Potentially facing up into Percy Jackson here, that is right, with this Scale Scorn Olaf that we saw earlier. The Olaf not at 2-star yet. The Shroud of Stillness, the wider beam off the Radiant item, capturing the whole board of Percy Jackson, and this Yone is just carving through it. The Olaf doesn't have enough damage. The Divine Judgment coming out from the Zoe there in the back corner of Percy Jackson's board. Maybe enough, no, not quite enough to carve through that Yone, and allowing the Olaf to carve through that Yone, might I add. And a big win for Oboe there as he is fighting for every single bit of placement possible.
Yeah, it's pretty much whoever rolls into Colorful at this point of the game here is going to be mating a swift death. I think that's just the reality that we're in, Ducky.
Yeah, pretty much. But, there is also a stabby tabby that we're talking about here. So good positioning is required for that, because we have seen poor positioning this weekend really hamper some very strong boards.
Well, I mean, you want to talk about good positioning. Tamura is just trying to position everything around, getting those ZZ rots in a nice position to try to counter it. Still ends up taking the last round. Too Colorful is going to be up against Oboe. This is potentially the last matchup for Oboe here, especially if the Tie Blossoms get a good pop. That's going to be a big AoE coming through. Half of the Yone's health immediately chunked out, and the Morello is doing so much work preventing this heal cut. Unfortunately, there's so big boom coming through, and that is Oboe and Percy out in 4th and 3rd respectively.
Oboe taking big damage there, does end up going out in 4th, while Percy Jackson does eke out the 3rd there. 1 point, we're talking about these 1 points, they make all the difference at the end of the day. We're into the one-on-one against Tamura and Colorful. 2 players who have performed very well today so far. And big roll down here from Colorful as well, hitting the Nyla 2, hitting the Rengar 3. That is a very scary cat now. That could just jump on this Sohm if not well positioned, but I think Tamura is aware of this fact and is giving their Sohm every little bit of inch of room to try and make it work.
I almost wonder if that was correct, making the Rengar 3 at this point, simply because it may have been better to keep 2 Rengar 2s to give better backline access, instead of getting a little bit unlucky. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see as the Rengar does get shrouded. Looks like the damage is coming through, but the Rengar just has so much healing, Ducky. It's just unkillable at this stage of the game. The Sohm deals big bursts of damage, but manages to find its way into the backline. It looks like Tamura's in dire straits right now.
And it was jumping around as well. It couldn't quite get the lowest armor character. Well, you couldn't quite get the Sohm to be the lowest armor character, so it was just jumping around trying to finally carve through the rest of the backline to end up hitting the Sohm. And it just didn't matter at that point. Tamura, though, with the Mage Cap, could potentially change things up as well. That is going to only empower the board. I think he can maybe enable 5 or 7 Mage from here. I'm going to do a little bit of counting, because that is 1, 2, 3, Could look for the 5. The double bard cast as well is something that has to be pointed out. It is very strong regardless. Double the chance, I guess, to hit Rengar, but it has to hit the Rengar and then burst it down with a perfectly placed Tie Blossom.
I saw that it even hit the Rengar last fight though, Ducky. It hit the Rengar and it didn't do anything. There was just not enough damage. There's just not enough burst damage on the side that's able to burst through a Rengar 3, so I guess I've answered my own question. It was correct to end up making it. There's going to be a side swap. The Rengar does go over to the other side, but Rengar known for leaping around massive quantities here, and the Soma 2 is just gone. Soma 2, the one chance that Tamura had for winning this fight is now completely gone, and it looks to me like Tamura's had their last chance in this game. Dark Flight is going to be taking it home. A dominant game from Tamura.
Yeah, colourful there with the 18 win streak to win that game out, game 3 of the